Hey everyone, Diego here from the Azure Global Black Belt team. I get to spend my days working alongside solution engineers and cloud solution architects, tackling some really tricky AKS and Arrow problems out in the field. Today, I want to show you something Reiko and I put together, and we call it Project Nighthawk. Project Nighthawk is a tool we built for ourselves that we think a lot of you will find useful too. If you've worked on this space before, you know the drill. Customer hits something, maybe node bootstrap fails, maybe there's a permission error buried in a Terraform plan, maybe networking is doing something weird and you are in the middle of a POC. And the answer is really never in one convenient place. It's scattered across source code, a Microsoft Learn article that's technically accurate but written at the wrong level of abstraction, a changelog buried in a release from 8 months ago, or, it looks like in most cases, the brain of a teammate who may or may not be around right at the moment. Let's be honest, tracking all of this down, cross-checking it, and really turning into something you can actually share with a customer or with a teammate takes time. And time we don't always have. And this is exactly why we've developed Nighthawk. What Nighthawk is? Well, Nighthawk is a multi-agent research system that lives right here inside of VS Code. We use Nighthawk with VS Code and GitHub Copilot, and what we can do with it is we can ask technical questions about AKS and Arrow. It comes back with fact-checked, source-cited resources in Markdown. But I want to be clear about something here right from the get-go. This isn't a language model recalling things from a training data. It's an actual investigation. It's a tool that assists us, and it has been assisting us for a while, to get some of the job done. Source code gets read, official docs get pulled in, claims get verified against real sources, and findings get written to a file that is consistent in a usable format. We've actually chosen Markdown for this. The kind of thing a senior engineer would put together after a couple of hours of focused digging, but a lot faster and also likely a lot more consistent. Alright, let me show you how this works actually. Here in VS Code, the interface we're going to be using for this is the chat interface. You can find that here at the top. Once in the chat interface, you can now ask your question. I'm going to type one command in the chat panel to invoke Nighthawk, and that is /Nighthawk. With that, I can now ask my question. In the quick start here, we actually have a few examples, so I'm just going to copy one of them. So let's suppose you are in a scenario where you're looking for network options for Arrow clusters. I'm going to paste that in here and see Nighthawk in action. What you're watching now is the 6-agent pipeline kicking off. You can see them in here. First, the orchestrator picks up the question and tries to understand where to send it. In the same way a senior engineer would do it, we need to understand who can answer the question for us. Then the classifier takes a look and make a few decisions. Well, this is an Arrow question. It's a guidance question we're looking for. And then it will now break down in a few keywords and essentially focus on those. At this point, we see that there's a sub-agent that is essentially clearing all of the previous staging files. So as you run this, one set of instructions after the other one, so you have multiple questions. Every time you come back to Nighthawk, you know you have a pristine environment that you're going to be working against. Now, one of the things that we've implemented here in Nighthawk is the ability not only for the agents to look locally at code that we're pulling from GitHub, but also to use MCPs that will go into MS Learn and also GitHub, and then verify information against these two sources. Right now, what we see happening is that the classification is for arrow. We're looking for guidance, and then the agent itself has a high confidence of where this is going. The keywords here are private cluster, networking, egress, user-defined route or UDR, firewall, software-defined networking or SDN, OVN, ingress, and private endpoint. So you get the idea. It does break down from our original question with the intent that we had. After that, we'll see that the agent is checking whether or not we actually have the repos that we assigned for arrow locally on disk. And we do. This is actually something that we've implemented that will ask the operator whether or not you have it. If not, you can pull it, or you can do just either clone or pull to make sure that it is up to date. Because I have done this before, I'm just gonna say we're done. Otherwise, what we wanted to happen here is want you to run these commands in a terminal. In fact, our agents here do not have any ability whatsoever to run any commands local on a terminal. And that's by design. We did not want to give that freedom for these agents. With that, the next step here is to proceed with research. That's stage 3 for us. Once the research kicks in, that agent will now get to work. And again, it will look into what's cloned, which we just saw, and then it will dig through source code and read relevant files. After that, it needs to cross-reference the Microsoft Learn documentation, in this case that we have here, using the Microsoft Learn MCP server. So now, while this is running here, I want to take a moment just to talk a little bit about MCP. Model Context Protocol. This is key for us here, and it is how we actually get the researcher to pull in external knowledge without ever leaving VS Code, which is pretty handy. Once the researcher wraps up, the synthesizer then takes over. Before it actually writes a single word, it reads a report template. And I'll pause a moment here as well. We actually have created a template that is based on how we actually communicate ourselves. This is open and it's something you can customize. And we actually encourage you to go and change it. Change it to your taste, change it to your tone, change it so it's original and it sounds like it's actually coming from you. It would make sense to go and write that. So every report that comes out of Nighthawk follows the same structure. A TLDR up top, recommendations table, code examples, Mermaid diagrams, if they do make sense, and then a full reference list at the bottom. So after letting the tool run here for a while, we're back at it. And then what we see now is a full and complete report. And my favorite part here, the fact checker. And you can see that actually ran here. So what is happening is the fact checker reads this finished report, and then it goes back to the sources to validate every claim. Anything it can confirm gets a mark. Anything it can't gets flagged right away. And sometimes what will also happen here, which is the case that I have in front of me, it will say, hey, this doesn't make sense. So it's likely just looking for some hallucinations. These areas do make sense, but might need further investigation. You should look into that, and I'll show you that here in a second. The finished report is actually then saved into the notes directory on this side. You can see we have a few files in here, and there you go. This is the actual finished report. I'm going to keep it. We're actually, one of the things that is happening here, let me go back to this. This is on your git ignore by default, so where if you are saving this somewhere, this won't be then saved on GitHub. Again, by design, this is local on my machine. But if we look into this here, right at the top, what do we have? We have a TLDR section with a couple of sentences, direct answer, just not really going around. We really need to understand, can this be done, in my case, my question that I had here, with Arrow and private clusters or not? If so, let's move on and then look into the other portions of this document here. There's a full breakdown, roles, scopes, the reasoning behind each one of them, and then in some instances, which is the case here, we actually have some examples that you can reuse later on. So potentially, if you're doing a POC, this might be a place where you can use this as part of your documentation. Now, here's the other interesting thing that we have happening for us. Where the architecture benefits from a picture, the synthesizer will drop a Mermaid diagram, which you can actually see if you install the Mermaid extension. So if it does make sense, we'll have one in here embedded in this document as well. You can see we have the tables, the source code, and you can tweak this too if you want it. Now this is something that has been fact-checked. That is a summary. Every claim was accounted for. Now, what happens if something that we have in here really doesn't make sense? Well, you can see there is a table about the claims, some of the status, and as I go down, there is some inaccurate portions in here. We do have a validation result with some of the scores in here, and areas that we feel like you, the engineer looking at this, should actually go and revise this section, which is what we have down here. Now let me walk you through how this is built so you can have an idea, and then also, of course, you can tweak and change this to your like. The area that I want you to look into is on this side under the .github directory. In here we have three main directories: agents, prompts, and skills. Under the hood, Nighthawk is built on what the Azure Architecture Center calls the agent handoff pattern. 6 specialized agents, each one focused on exactly one thing, each one passing a structured result to the next agent. If we come down here and look into what we have for the Arrow research agent, we can see a description at the top that tells exactly what this agent is used for, the model, which you can tweak, the set of tools, and then the skills. That's also true for the AKS research agent. You can see that we have the model, we have tools, and then we have the skills as well. Now, one interesting portion of this setup is that I really love about this actually. The agent definitions are just markdown files. That's it. No code, no scripts, no build steps, no deployment pipeline. Everything lives in the repo with everything else, which is awesome. So it means I can move between machines, and as long as I have VS Code and then the Copilot CLI, I'm pretty much good to go at this point. I can add new things like the Mermaid extension to VS Code in case I wanted to visualize Mermaid diagrams, but I don't need to. Essentially, this is what I need. Git, the Copilot CLI, and then VS Code. Let's take a quick look at the skills where we have a couple of skills. One is called local repos, and then the other one is the report templates. In here, the same idea applies. The local repo skill tells every researcher agent which repos to look at and in what order. And you can see that in here too. You can change all of this. If we move into the report template, this essentially gives the synthesizer the structure it needs to follow every single time. Agents load this at runtime, so they don't need to carry all of the context in their system prompt. You can change this. This should be your voice. This should be how you actually write. Should help you somehow to achieve what you're looking for in terms of this research. Now that you have a good view of what we can actually do here with Nighthawk, I want to mention a couple of things. Nighthawk is not trying to replace the expertise that comes from years of working with AKS and Arrow and other cloud native technology. That's not the point here. The point really is this. This is a tool that will help you to have better material. It will help you to have better in-depth expertise to work with. Faster, you can do your research in probably a fragment of the time that it would take you to actually gather all this information and make sure you understand what is happening, and it's ready to share. You can actually help others with this too. If you are a solution engineer or a cloud solution architect working with cloud-native workloads on Azure, and you want to spend less time hunting for answers and more time actually building things and helping others, give this a try. I'm gonna actually do this. The repo link is in the description. I want to ask you to do me a favor. Clone it. Ask something hard. Try it out. See what comes back. I'm Diego Casari. Thank you so much for watching.